Hi guys, this is Steve and Lorna for the table talk of the week. This is going to be a bit different from what you have seen in the past month and weeks. Lorna is a client of mine, private client. So in this part of the interview, because there's going to be a two-part, the other part is going to be with Matthew that you met early on a couple of weeks or month ago. I don't remember exactly when it's going to be posted, but Lorna comes from a past that is very different from what you think. She trains here 2 times a week. When I met her, she wrote me, and actually she came here through a contest that we made, and she won. We met over the internet, and she was following my work for a couple of years, I think.
Yeah.
And when she won, I wasn't there. It was a Friday night, and one of the trainers here did their evaluation, and he wrote me, and I remember the text. The message was saying like, "Wow, she is, over the top. Like she's fucked up." I remember this,
Yeah.
So if there was a lot of things, I was like, all right, well, so what is it, And then inflammation came back, and she's gonna let you know about her story. And it is an honor for me to train her because it's a new challenge for me in life. I've been training people who are injured, and you're gonna know the story in a few minutes. And for me, it's a challenge, and you'll see that not a lot of people are willing to train with the disease that she has and how she makes it in a day. So guys, I present you Lorna. She's from Croatia and she trains here. So welcome, Lorna. So can you tell us about, and the whole platform is yours now, because I think you have an interesting story, interesting life. You have a past that is very different from a regular kid, that was 12 years old or 15 years old.
Yeah.
So
it's very challenging to put context to people who have lived here in a protected world their whole lives, and to try to bring pieces of this into today's conversation. Also because I turned to you because I have many different diagnoses, and I needed help with just getting better and doing the next step, and that's how I see you as in my journey being the next step, and in getting better really. And giving context to that is when you said fucked up, it's about the diagnosis mostly, like having Crohn's disease for already 22 years, post-traumatic stress disorder, underactive thyroid, recurrent kidney stones, and many complications from medication and such. Going back from the beginning, let's say I was born and raised in Croatia, came to Canada in 2014, but I spent my whole life in Croatia. I have to start from what caused my disease, and mostly my post-traumatic stress disorder, and that was the part of living in a war zone. That was at the age of, let's say, 8, 9, up to 12, 13 approximately. So where I lived, it was mostly, it was heavily attacked, part of Croatia where I lived, that made all the difference in how those 5 years of war were spent, which means that we lived in mostly in underground shelters. Also no water, no food, no electricity, and it's very hard to describe that. I'm only ready to talk about this now because I'm trying to reintegrate the parts of trauma and heal back into wholeness and own this whole story as my own. So at the very beginning of the war, the town was surrounded from all sides. We were heavily attacked from the sea. All roads were blocked. There was the town was under fire, like completely. We were attacked from the air as well. They were throwing cluster munition as well, which is tricky because it doesn't necessarily explode when it hits the ground. It only explodes when you try to touch it or move it, so a lot of people got killed that way as well. I remember this specific night because they were closing in on us. They were really, really close. My father was an army officer, and just before they bombed the bridge, which was the only exit from that part, we managed to get through there. Only thanks to my dad that came in time there to pack us up and put us in a car. And which is weird from a child's perspective because I remember the panic and everybody getting ready and screaming and the whole thing, and me, I was putting my dolls beneath my bed. And I was covering them up because I wanted them to be safe in case the bomb falls on my house. And my mom came into the room and she was like, "Lorna, what are you doing? We need to leave." And I'm like, "Well, what if the bomb falls? Like, what is going to happen to them?" And she started crying, and she started putting all those toys in the black garbage bag. And then my little brother comes in, and then he's like, "Well, I want my toys as well, you know." And then soon enough, the whole car was packed with toys. We headed outside of the city while under fire and all of that, and we had to drive with our lights off, because otherwise you're a very visible target from the air. We managed to escape from that, and we were put on a train and went into Hungary for a while. Later on we came back, and there was a lot of going on, and it's hard to explain to someone who never has been through that. Let's say for some of the good memories that I do have from war would be like we had no electricity, so at a certain point my father brought like this electric, how do you call it, like a little, like the maker of the electricity, how do you call that? The little...
It would be like a generator? Or?
Yeah, generator, that's right. But it only had the power to like put one light, and we put the TV and the Nintendo. So you have the setting like bombs are falling, and we're there like playing Nintendo, and my mom and my grandmother was actually like hitting the best score there, and the whole family is just playing Nintendo because like all of this is just normal. So yeah, it was that weird in that sense, but there was no other way of surviving psychologically, because just being in underground shelters and listening to bombs falling is devastating enough, and nevertheless knowing different sounds from it was really something. And I just remember that when it supposedly finished, I remember this. I don't have a lot of memories from that part, but I do remember feeling completely broken. I feel the emotion of not fear but complete horror and terror. I felt the emotion not of anger but of blinding rage, and not the emotion of sadness but immense grief. And I just felt like my spirit was completely broken. I didn't want to live on this planet anymore, and my child brain wasn't, I just couldn't, it was beyond me to understand, like, why do people kill each other? Why do people hate each other? Why is this happening? Soon enough, I got sick, very sick, and a year after that I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. My parents took me to the capital city, and that's where I got my diagnosis. And it was so bad that the doctors said to my parents that they don't know if I'm gonna make it. And this is something that my parents only decided to share with me a few years later on, because I was too small there. I made it through, and my life turned into series of hospitals and hospital treatments and hospital visits and medication, and that has been a huge part of my life. I feel like I've spent my whole life in a hospital.
And you are still doing these visits?
Well,
yeah, at the hospital, I mean.
Yeah, well, I was in the hospital, it's mostly seasonal. It's like every Easter and every Christmas, let's say. So mostly in the beginning it was for a month, around Easter, and a month around Christmas. Then it was 3 months here and 3 months there. So then soon enough it was 6 months, finishing from 2008 to 2010 I was in complete hospital lockdown for 2 years. It was so bad that none of the medications they had to offer, none of them worked. Also, I was a part of a double-blind study of experimental medication for Crohn's disease. First of them lasted for 2 years, and I was 18 at the time. And already at the age of 18, they tried all that they had, and they pumped me to doses that were...
And it started around what age?
It started around 12.
Okay.
Yeah. Around 12, 13. I had my surgery when I was 15. Just the preparation for the surgery required 8 months stay in the hospital and being fed by the tube. And my friends were visiting me, and they called me 7 of 9, you know, the human Borg, because I had the tube. I was being fed by the tube, and that was the only thing. And you try to find the humor in that, of course, 7 of 9, yeah. But that was the preparation for the surgery, and they took out a meter of my bowels, and then 2 months after I had another flare-up, so yay! Yeah.
So do you think that the operation was useless?
Well, it made sense at the time because the inflammation was only localized at this one point each flare-up. So they thought if they took out this part, I might get at least some, maybe a few years of remission, which didn't happen in my case because inflammation went all over. That led to me taking humongous doses of corticosteroids and whatnot, everything they had. And finally, I was included in this international study that lasted for 2 years. I had to write down in my chart all of my symptoms, and it was very demanding. And after 2 years, I found out that I wasn't given the placebo, I was given the substance. And because there was a short part of remission after that, that was one of the reasons why the Croatian government decided to fund the biological medication in Croatia. So I was one of the first patients, one of the first 5 patients that got biological medication for Crohn's disease in the whole Croatia. And I remember that at the time the government paid 107, if I'm not mistaken, thousand of euros for 8 doses of the medication for each patient. And what people don't understand, the protocol and how many tests I had to go through for this to be approved, and the protocols and the tests and the torture, the examination, the hospital visits, it was constant. While all of that, I was just a teenager trying to have a normal life, normal as possible, because in that part, Croatia was still not...
We're still crumbling down.
Yeah, because you would think like war finished and now it's good. No.
It was. So now...
It was ridiculous, yeah.
Time is running short, so last question.
Yeah.
What made you get into the training, into like strength and conditioning?
Yeah, well, I just realized that all of this, what they're doing to me, something broke, and I said no and no more. And I started doing my own thing, and I realized what I need to do for my body in order to stay well. And I turned that into something positive. I started eating for the purpose because I want to do the competition, or because I want to have this lifestyle, not because I'm sick. I had to learn how to make peace with my body and peacefully accept what is it saying to me. Like, if I need to lie down, I need to lie down. And it's very hard to accept those challenges there. It was a lot of transformations along the way that I needed to do, but the final one was coming to Canada and having now this security here and my own apartment and everything here has allowed me to excel at all of this, because this is the first time in my life where I have the roof over my head and I have the security where now I can build upon that. Before I never had the basics where now you can build on this, because if it's just about the survival, there is no place for anything else.
So from Croatia to the war, to the after war, to meeting you in person here at my gym. So now you have a great mindset. We're gonna interview in the second part of this interview. We're gonna be with Matthew apart from Peak Mindset, because obviously it's great. So it's a success story for me, very motivational stuff, very cool. So stay tuned, guys. This is part 2 coming up with Lorna and Matthew and me. So part 2 on the mindset of the champion. Stay tuned. Thank you. See you later. Bye bye.